And welcome to the Patriot Nation Network. I'm your host, Matt St. Jean, here today with a special guest, the one and only Nate Tice. Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, it's the unique name pod. It's there is one and only Matt. I feel like there's only one Matt St. Jean I'm ever going to meet in my life, and probably the only Nate Tice you might meet in meet in your life.
See, you know what's
So
funny about that?
yeah,
Is when I
what's that?
signed up for Twitter, I tried to get like my name on here. There are already multiple Matt St. Jeans who are in like sports or broadcast journalism or something. I'm
And
like the third.
and just to continue ruining, like I am actually going to ruin my own joke too, because there's another why I'm Nate underscore Tice on Twitter. Is there is a Nate Tice on Twitter, just one word. And the thing with it is he does tweet about sports a lot, and he is a hot take artist. So I'm sure there's been some arguments that he's gotten into with some people that think he's me, and there's probably some stuff that's gone on. But man, I've found his account a couple times, and it's just like, oh man, that's like, no, that's not me. That's not me, guys. That's not me. I am not tweeting about the Browns and Jim Schwartz right now and yelling at NFL Network about something. That is not me.
Sure, it's definitely not your burner
It's
account.
not me. Yeah. But yeah, my burner is Nate Tice, just without the underscore. That
Well, Nate, he's the co-host of the Athletic Football Show, contributor at Yahoo Sports. We're going to be talking through this whole Patriots offseason, everything from the departure of Bill Belichick to what they could do in the draft. Before we get into it, just a reminder, this podcast is presented by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000 with basketball, hockey, or college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. This week on Prize Picks, I'm selecting Caitlin Clark for more than 30 points and LeBron James for more than 7 assists. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS. How about Caitlin Clark the other night, by the way? I don't know if you saw that,
oh
but
yeah, I did. That was a appointment viewing. Me and millions of people apparently. Uh,
that got higher ratings than any NBA game last season, except for I think
uh,
Game 5 of the finals.
The atmosphere was just, I mean, I love it. I love it.
Unbelievable.
I love it so much. It's just emotion. It's also just you had like you don't get that too in sports too, is even if say like you get a repeat matchup in the tournament, is say in men's basketball, all those guys would be gone. It'd be like
Yeah.
maybe one guy still there, or two guys from one guy from each team. Like I'm a Wisconsin Badger, and they had
Mhm.
back-to-back Final Fours, play Kentucky in back-to-back years. No starter really remained from that first Kentucky team to the second Kentucky team. So yes, it's a rivalry between fans, but not so much the players on the court. And shoot, you watch this matchup, and it was just like you could feel the energy, and you could feel
Yeah.
them going back and forth, and you could feel each. I mean, Angel Reese just being a warrior out there and just
Yeah.
like just battling, and you could see the competitiveness. I don't know, it was just great. If you just love
Yeah.
sports, is best because it's just humans,
That's
it's just competition and
yeah.
everything. So that was the best.
Yeah. There's something about college sport that brings that out on a different level that I
It does.
absolutely love. Yeah. But we're here to talk about the Patriots, get into the pros, and let's start with maybe one of the biggest stories of the offseason. Patriots moving on from Bill Belichick, a mutual parting of ways back at the end of the regular season there. They promote from within with Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf, which is kind of a rarity to let your head coach go and say, we're going to keep guys who were already here. What are your thoughts on how they handle that situation?
Yeah, the Belichick thing, it felt like who was gonna blink on when the last day was, and it was, it's Coach Belichick. I have the utmost respect for him, but it did feel like the Patriots franchise needed somewhat of a new page. Not saying a new book, but a new page maybe in the same book, which I think this is what it is. It's there is, even if some of the Patriot way, quote unquote, has maybe faltered the last few years, whether it's a brain drain, whether it's post Tom Brady, whatever it is, Belichick getting up there in years, there's still a lot of qualities of that Patriots way and stuff to take away from it. And that's why I think this is probably a nice way to maybe usher in that new era, especially someone like Mayo, who, I mean, shoot, just for me as a national guy, seeing his quotes and just knowing about him, he's a leader of men type. It's not the worst guy that's an unproven guy. He has proof already as a player and an assistant of being that type that gets through the players. I think a lot of his quotes show that he's kind of forward thinking in a way, which is really nice to hear. I mean, I always think this is all coach speak before they play one game. Shoot, I had a battle that I liked Dan Campbell for a long time, and now everyone loves Dan Campbell. But when he came out and started talking about biting kneecaps, it was the worst thing ever. And then it showed out he was just an amazing in-game coach and in-game motivator. It's like that's why all these quotes, I don't care. Everyone hated Jonathan Gannon last year. I know the Cardinals weren't great, but it was like I really like what Jonathan Gannon is doing in Arizona. So what I'm saying is, yes, Mayo could be knocking it out of the park or doing bad. Who knows until they just start getting this thing going. But what I know about Elliott Wolf is he's super well respected. He's a lifer in the weirdest way. Like him and I'm sure him and Belichick almost felt like kindred spirits a little bit, like just being around the game, working in personnel, doing reports in middle school and high school and stuff like that. I don't know Elliott personally, but I do know a lot of people that have worked with him, and everyone loves him. Everyone knows that he's a sharp guy, and everyone knows that he kind of has that bridge of the old school mentality, but also being younger and having forward thinking stuff, which is something I really appreciate. I really like. I like this. As far the Patriots are always going to be kind of a unique thing because Belichick's shadow is going to be there forever, or at least until we all get really old, and then everyone just kind of forgets. But it's going to be a while before that goes away until you win new games with a totally new quarterback and totally new feel to it. So I think to me, neutral person, neutral observer, this is the best way of bridging that old Patriots with getting something new. And I like it. I really do. It's as I like it as much as I can for something that's unproven.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and I like your analogy about, a new page, but not a new book.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I think
stumble into
that's
one every once in a while. Like I'm like, hey, that actually works. All right, right now I'm going to use that in my article this week somewhere.
no, that's clearly the approach here, and I think some in New England have taken a offense to maybe the implication that it was all Bill's fault and that we're going to keep the system, but the person has to change. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think there is some to it. I think it's just so hard because there is that this isn't 2006 Bill Belichick, he's wavered on some of those old ideals. So I don't know what he stands with still and what he's wavered off of. And, of course, you get into the he said, she said stuff. And of course, everyone made the right choice and the wrong choice wasn't theirs. You see in their article, that was the other guy, right? I the Mac Jones situation, which I'm sure a lot of Patriots fans have a lot of feelings about, has really disappointed me as someone that has a lot of respect for Belichick, because I just thought that whole process to allow him to succeed, I thought rookie year was ideal. I think that's a great kind of proving ground, or at least proof for a lot of other teams that want to build up around a young quarterback and a young quarterback contract, at least for that first year. But everything that happened after that was like, what happened? What the Patricia stuff, the Joe Judge stuff, even all the stuff last year, benching him, Zappy, all this stuff, that disappointed me. And that was where my question started, where it's like, does he deserve another chance at another young QB? What are you? What are you trying to build here? So what you're saying is that some of the philosophies are still good. Maybe it has to be a different person. I do have some agreement with that. And again, you have to get into where all the details are, but when it was all going well, he was the man at the top, and he was the one making all the decisions. He was the czar. He was the emperor,
Yeah.
and that was all hunky dory. But when things go bad, that aren't you still at the top? So that's where I have some agreement that it's like maybe it was time to move on.
Yep. And you get credit for all that success. You also, you got to take the blame too when
Yeah,
things go bad, when it's all on you. Which, there's been a lot of blame to go around the way things have been handled. Yeah.
usually
Boston.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
But
how
with
it kind of
the
goes.
new, yeah. But with Wolf and Mayo now, there was a lot of talk to start the offseason about we're going to go out, we're going to spend money. This team had a ton of cap space, free agency hits, and it wasn't a big spending spree. A lot of the money stays home. It's Mike Onwenu, it's Hunter Henry, it's Kendrick Bourne, who I know you are a big fan of. Transition tag on Kyle Duggar. You keep Josh Uche home on a very cheap deal, a very reasonable deal with a guy betting on himself and staying in the building. Your big moves, your splash moves, it's Jacoby Brissett, it's Antonio Gibson, it's KJ Osborne. What do you think? Are the Patriots playing this too conservatively, or was this kind of the right moderate approach to this?
I thought this was the right moderate approach. I think the Patriots are in a rebuild slash revamp, and whether they go with Jacoby Brissett or if they draft a young guy, I think this is a good situation for a young guy, or a good situation, or a better situation, I should say. It's not completely like, oh God, what are we doing here situation, where the young guy's going to get killed. I'll have more thoughts of that later. But it's the but I think it's at least above baseline, if that makes sense. Because Kendrick Bourne is at least a solid receiver. Michael Wenwu is like I mean, I thought should have been he could have gotten a lot of money somewhere else. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? Well, the Patriots went, why let him go? We have money and we need players. You need players. Even if you're rebuilding, you still need players, because otherwise your blue chip guys that you're drafting high are just thrown into the deep end. Some guys work out, but a lot of the times they sink because they have no one else to lean on. They're taking too much brunt, all those types of things. So I actually liked that I thought the Patriots had a lot of like guys that I like as the football hipster. So I Hunter Henry, I like him. Is he like the true blue elite tight end? No. Is he a very good tight end? Probably not. But is he a good tier 3 tight end? Yeah. And I know Patriots fans are probably like, what? It's like, trust me, look at the tight ends out there. You don't get a lot of guys that can do what Hunter Henry does, at least well. So why move on from him? Who could we replace him with that could even be near that baseline? So if you get a young guy, or again, if you just punt on this season or rebuild this season, I'm a big fan actually, Jacoby Brissett, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I think Brissett should be starting somewhere. When the Patriots moved from stuck with him, or brought him back, I should say. I yeah, I feel like I would much rather go with Jacoby Brissett than a retread Russell Wilson, or a Jacoby Brissett than I was going to say Kenny Pickett. It's like I'm going right back to the Steelers again, but it's just Jacoby Brissett
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, great example. Deshaun Watson. He outplayed Deshaun Watson last year, or 2 years ago, I should say now. But he's a solid starter. He is your 16th to 20th best starter, which is you can win with. So, all right, this isn't going to be a doldrum year. We can evaluate whatever young guy we drop in here. If we do draft a quarterback, he doesn't have to start right away, and the stuff around him's not bad. This defense is going to be good. Mayo knows the defense. It's not, I don't think there is it going to be elite. I'm not sure, but I still think it's going to be well good, easily good. So getting the offense above baseline, I'm fine with this. And if you want to drop in talent at another position, it becomes a little easier where that guy doesn't have to be the guy, or they have some more supporting cast around them. So it's not a punt on the season. It's more just like, hey, we just keep it up. Just keep the ball in the air kind of off season, which I liked.
Yeah, I think some have referred to this kind of as year zero for this administration too, which I think whether this is a year zero or year one kind of comes down to what they do with that number 3 pick. If there's a quarterback taken there, which I want to get into here. Before we get into the specific quarterbacks in the draft, I actually have a couple philosophical questions here about how you approach this. I know there's a lot of talk about, some people prefer you draft a quarterback and then you build around him. Some people want to build a team and then drop in a quarterback. Do you have a preference there, or is it really just a matter of where you pick and who's available and what your specific situation is?
Where you pick, what your specific situation is. I don't want to get on a long rant on this. I find it funny though that there's 32 teams with wildly different owners, wildly different cap situations, wildly different players. We even tier players together and say these guys are both elite and they win in completely different ways. But that's a whole thing. It's so hard to just go, this is the best way to build your team. To me, that I think that is a funny fool's errand, because it's just more what you got. All right, this is what I got. I got a really good guard. Wow, my slot receiver might be my best receiver. I got a good pass rusher. All right, so how am I going to build around this team? All right, this is what I got to do. That's what the good teams do. All right, these are our elite blue chippers. You build around the blue chippers. Doesn't matter what the position is. You prefer some positions. I'd much rather have a left tackle than a left guard, obviously. But a blue chipper is a blue chipper. It's a 99 overall on Madden. And I think we have gotten a little bit away from that. And now all of a sudden, the guard, defensive tackles are premium positions now because a couple guys got paid this offseason. Like, that discussion to me has been really funny. Sorry, I'm going on a whole rant here. But it's like the guard and that is a really funny to me. I think there's now more premium positions than non-premium positions. How is that premium if there's more premium
Yeah.
positions than non? So we've just lost. People have lost the thread like over the last couple of years. I've
Yeah.
stayed out of these discussions. I just laugh at them. But that's what I'm getting at is you got what you got. We got to find what are we building around. If I have Christian freaking McCaffrey, I'm going to do a lot of with Christian McCaffrey, even if running backs aren't
Yeah.
the sexy premium position. If I have Cooper Cup, I'm going to build an offense around Cooper Cup, prime Cooper Cup, maybe not this year as he's getting beat up. If I have these unique talent, if I have Roquan Smith, I'm going to do a bunch of funky defenses. If I have a guy like a safety, I have Kyle Hamilton, I'm going to use him in a certain way. So why I'm saying all these about positions is that with, say, a team like the Patriots, it's all right. We have a lot of solid on offense, a lot of okay, maybe not needle movers. All right. So if we do draft a quarterback, this is what we get through this year. What's our number one need for next year? Get a needle mover. Get
Yeah.
as far as a receiver. For this year, it's more just making sure the offensive line is okay. But again, that gets into a different situation. It's different than dropping in Patrick Mahomes into a playoff team. Like they're ready made. They have Travis Kelce. They have Tyreek Hill. Fields gets dropped in the Bears where they're terrible. And then now Caleb Williams is getting dropped in there and it's ready made. It's like, yeah, that's ideal, but not a lot of teams can build up a team like that and then have the number one pick. It's you know what I mean? It's just so hard to get to these situations without doing something funky or something drastic happen. So long-winded
It's,
way of me saying just play the cards that were dealt to you. that is
yeah.
my
It's
philosophy.
it feels like there's a lot of searching for the perfect is the enemy of the good in
Yeah.
that analysis. Like
Yes.
you're just trying to find a way to win football games and
That's
add
it.
every year. Like
That's
it's
it.
not smooth.
Oh.
We overcomplicate it.
We really do. Oh man, and that's what funny. Whenever there's a takeaway from a season, like this takeaway this year has been the CEO head coach is back because Dan Campbell had a good year, and Harbaugh had a good year. It was just like maybe
Didn't
like they
leave.
won. Like I don't know, but it's just funny. The takeaways are always just very funny to me. Some are real. Like to me, my biggest takeaway that I'm going to start beating the drum is I think the run game is going to be huge this year across the NFL. I think the teams are going to be wild this year. I think there's going to be a lot of creativity, and that's something I'm going to start beating the drum about. But that's a takeaway.
Yes.
Philosophical takeaways about guard premium position is not something to be. That is just a reaction to as opposed to the process of everything. Thank you for
Yeah.
letting me
Right.
rant for a couple minutes on an innocent question.
I love it. I love it. I love it. My other question here, I think, kind of plays into that a little bit. But one of the things that's interesting to me when I look at the AFC versus the NFC is the difference in quarterback play. You know, the AFC has a lot of these dynamic playmakers in a way the NFC doesn't necessarily have at that
Mhm.
position. As Patriots as an AFC team, would you approach building your team differently than you would if you're an NFC team just because of the guys in your conference?
Uh, no, you're just trying to build the best team. You
Yeah.
can't predict. Joe Burrow got hurt last year. You know, you can't
Yeah.
predict like what's going to happen with that team. So I think there's a lot of times that people go down a path where they're trying to like, oh, well, this is going to happen, so we got to do this. It's like, well, you just got to build your own situation. Everything else will fall into place. Like sometimes you go against an elite quarterback and maybe the offensive line fall apart. So who cares? Like it fell apart. So like there you got injured and all that. So you build your best team. Doesn't matter which conference or division you're in. So that for me, a lot of I'm kind of laissez-faire about this, but I do think about this. I really do. But that to me is like you just build your best situation. That's all you care about. Because I've seen
Yeah.
too much of the negative side. It's like, well, we need pass rushers because we're playing Peyton Manning twice a year. It's like, well, you need pass rushers anyways. Like you play a lot of
Yeah.
quarterbacks, not just Peyton Manning. So I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
fallacy to this thinking sometimes.
Well, and I think it's very on point today of all days, recording this right after Stephon Diggs gets traded.
Right.
I think one of the motivations for the Patriots picking Christian Gonzalez at the time was their loss at the end of the season in Buffalo and what Stephon Diggs had done to them, saying we need a corner. And here we are,
Worked out.
less than 2 years removed, and he's not even in the division anymore.
That's a great
So
point.
yeah,
And well, I know the Gonzalez one I still love. I'm so sad he got hurt last
yeah,
year, but
he's a good pick anyway.
he
But
was. It's that one made well. You could see it was like okay, that was a perfect like a good offense exposed your actual weakness on your team because the Patriots did all they could with their little Smurf corner group that they had that year. And they did. I always appreciated that defense because they tried and they were doing some new stuff. And for Belichick, I didn't know if it was Steve or Bill or Mayo who was doing it, but they changed some things, just a few things I noticed, and it was like they're trying. And so when they took Gonzalez, I was like, Bill went, none of that. We're getting back to this man coverage. We're one double. We're doing that again. We're rolling that back out. Enough of the
You,
Smurfs on the outside.
you can scheme up all you want. Sometimes you just need a
Oh,
dude.
you need a dude. I know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's a whole quarterback discussion too. That's what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think some people
Yeah.
have been
Well,
missing out on quarterbacks. Oh, is that a good segue?
it is. Yeah. Speaking of dudes, let's talk about the two who I think could be available, maybe three, but that are being talked about. Number three at quarterback for the Patriots. Let's start with Drake May. We can go through these kind of quickly. I will say, for anybody who wants an extended breakdown on these guys, go listen to the Athletic podcast with Nate and Dane, where they go through all the quarterbacks. That episode is fantastic. If you want the big
Nice.
in-depth breakdown, go there. But if you want the quick one, you're the big Drake May guy.
I am.
Sell me on why the Patriots should, or why somebody should like Drake May, and also maybe why they wouldn't want him.
Yeah. He looks and plays like one of the dudes, like one of the elite guys throwing haymakers that you see usually in the final four of the playoffs or on one of the national TV games. And you go, wish I had one of those guys. He is prototypical size. I would say prototypical. Maybe I wish he was prototypical to me. And this is another thing I'll get into is like Cam.
Yeah.
like Cam Newton is a prototype, so I don't know. Like 6'4", 225 is like good. That's a really good size. But
Yeah.
Cam is 6'5", 240. It's like that. Andrew Luck. That's prototype to me. But
That's
anyways,
generational right there.
generation. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm getting a little spoiled.
May
But
is
that's
just like
is that what
good
I want?
quarterback size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's what you picture. But not only just that, he's gotten underrated as an athlete. He is one of the best scramblers. He's a very smart scrambler. He's a very good athlete, though. He's from a family of very good athletes, and he is at first you would watch him. He has a high scramble rate, so you're like, oh, why are you doing that? Watch him on film. There's a lot more understanding to it. He usually does the guys are covered or running a bad route, which happened a lot at North Carolina in that offense, or he got pressured, or he's trying to get something on third down. So there was thoughtfulness to his scrambling, which is always a good check mark for me. It wasn't just running because they're blind. On top of it, he is talk about throwing haymakers. That's all this guy does. This guy is a smart knockout artist, and he whips that ball over the middle. He pushes the ball downfield. But again, it's not reckless. I don't think there is some recklessness to his play, which I'll get to in a second. But I don't think when he is pushing the ball, it's why you're doing that. It's because it's smart aggression. And so much better to have a guy do that than the other way around, where they're just dinking and dunking and only throw one or two down the field. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. You guys just kind of went through that. Yeah. So this is the opposite of that. This is a creator. This is a guy that puts the team on his back, which he did in college. This North Carolina team was not good. And he was doing it, literally bringing his team back, like just throw after throw, scramble after scramble. And those are just the accuracy stuff. Excuse me. I have not thought of that as an issue as other people have, because I see him throw guys open as far as, a safety's closing on him and he throws it back shoulder to keep him away from the safety. He throws a guy low to keep a guy from getting hit. That's real accuracy to me. And so he actually places the ball. I think some people kind of take, oh, he misses one throw. That means he's not accurate. Some guys miss a throw and his misses are bad. I will say that because he's a line drive thrower, like a Justin Herbert, which has been a guy that he's been compared to. I think he's a little different flavor than Justin Herbert, but if he misses by 10 yards, which we saw at the pro day. His one miss was hit the freaking side of the indoor and it made a noise and everything. But guess what? The next 10 throws were dimes that were just unbelievable. Not a lot of guys can even think to throw. So that is with him, is that some of his negatives I think are not as big of negatives as people made him out to be, but I think his upside is as high as you want. I've considered him I have really three guys truly. I have to there's maybe a fourth. I mean, this is a different discussion, but three guys that I've considered purple chip guys in as quarterbacks since I started grading guys since 2014. And that's Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. I have them graded higher than I had Burrow. I have him graded higher than I had Justin Fields, who I was high on. I had him graded higher than Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, like all these guys that I had graded high. I have him graded higher than that. And I keep trying to get away from it. And I'm like, why I thought more people would be on the bandwagon, and it's just been so funny to me to see people drop off. I'm like, all right, sure, well, I'll take it. But
Yeah.
he's the total package of size, creation. He has some recklessness in a good way, where he's a creator, but he also has the traits as far as arm strength, speed, size to just be that kind of total package that you can do anything with him. He can operate in any offense and do it well, and I think his upside is truly MVP level.
So now what about, your Heisman winner there, Jaden Daniels? How do you feel about
Okay.
him?
Yeah. And I know I really like May, also really like Caleb Williams. Daniels is I have him a tier below. And I see him, I think on my big board right now, he's 19th on my big board. And I think that's more than fair. He to me he's accurate. He knows how to run the offense, which is always a good, like his eyes go to the right spot consistently. Of course, an exceptional athlete, and we can see him run against SEC defenses and torch them and does all that. He'll push the ball when he has his chances there. But now I can get into more negatives with him. So that's what I want to start with. I'm a little lower on Daniels than I think the consensus. I have concerns with him for size. His size would be a outlier, just weight wise. It truly would. I know he weighed at 210 at at his pro day. He didn't weigh at the combine.
Well,
And he got lit.
his height weight at the pro day is basically what Tom Brady's was at his combine in 2000, but we're talking about a guy who runs for a living.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And doesn't take care of his body. That's why the Lamar comparisons are not right. Is Lamar's a much more creative runner as far as agility. Lamar is also like Wayne Gretzky, where he doesn't get hit. No one can think of the last time Lamar took a shot. I can't. I really have never seen Lamar just get whacked and his head's hitting the side. He knows how to take care of his body in the weirdest way. Daniels is not. I've compared him to Johnny Knoxville. Like he will jump up and take shots, and it's like you love the toughness, you do, but it's like that's not going to fly in the NFL. He's been listed at 190 throughout college, which I believe more than the combine weight. So even if you halfway and say it's 200, sub 205 is scary. There's only been a couple successful quarterbacks that have been sub 205, especially recently. It's Kirk Cousins and like Jeff Garcia, and that's about it. And when I look at some of the other stuff, he doesn't really like I said, he throws a nice deep ball, but he's not an aggressive thrower. He will throw a lot of the lows on the high lows, which that's why I like May will throw a lot of the highs on the high lows. So meaning that he'll go for the double as opposed to the single. And those add up over time. It's a lot easier when you're turning a first down. Those are hidden yards. It's like, yes, they both got a completion. One got a 7-yard gain. That's a good play. One got a completion, got a 17-yard gain. That's a first down and 7 more yards to the next first down. Those add up over time. So with Daniels, I don't see him push the ball. And I think in my article about him on Yahoo, I came across a stat that was air yards to the sticks on third down. Just air yards to the sticks. And so basically how much do you push the ball relative to the first down marker on any down? And Daniels was negative, which meaning that his average was lower than the number, well, no lower than the sticks. And I think it was the first 2-round quarterbacks. None of those guys succeeded. It was like Will Levis, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. It was a lot of guys that are dinkers and dunkers. So that's fine. An accurate dinker and dunker that can roll. Okay, that's an interesting profile. But the problem is he takes a lot of sacks. A lot of sacks. And the problem is if he gets knocked off his launch point, meaning he gets pressured a little bit, he looks to run. If he got pressured, half the times he was scrambling. So if he got pressured, it was like 48% of the time he was scrambling, 25% of the time he was taking a sack, 25% of the time he was throwing, which is, it's like, okay, what does that mean? Usually it's about 70% of the time, that you we're trying to get rid of the ball. Like he is just not looking to throw. He's looking to run. With his size, his age, also, he has a lot of games started. And the fact that he's not looking to throw, that's a little concerning to me. He's always looking to run. So his profile to me, it's like a skinnier, weaker arm Justin Fields. It's Daniel Jones is actually a comparison to him. It's
I've been thinking about that one for a while now.
That's really what it is.
But he's older than
but
Daniel
he's
Jones
20.
was when he came out.
He's less than 2 years younger than Daniel Jones right now. So it's not like, Daniel Jones is already on a second contract. So, and Fields is, they're comparable in age to Fields. There's just a lot of red alerts going off. Red bells are going off. Like if you told me you're taking him at 24, 23, somewhere around there, way more comfortable, but totally understand that. Top 5, I am very hesitant, especially when he's going from that offense in LSU to now. This has been a whole discussion. I feel like I created a monster with this discussion because I wrote about it. Talked about him throwing over the middle and why that's what Fields doesn't do well. That's what Russell Wilson doesn't do well. That's what Daniel Jones doesn't do well. That's what Daniels doesn't do well either. And people are going, well, he has those receivers. Of course, he's going to throw it to the outside. The offense doesn't design anything over the middle. There's never been an offense in the history of time that doesn't design something over the middle. It's all about it's where the
And
ball
there's
goes.
and all kinds of routes with like in breakers from
In
neighbors where
breakers,
it's just not
slants. Yes, I know.
getting there.
Digs. He never, or when he does throw them, he's a hair late. That's what it's. I'm talking on both sides of my mouth with him. Is that I do think his eyes go to the right spot, but to me, it always felt a half second late. Just that, just like he misses that ideal window. And again, for a guy that started this many games, that's where my concerns come in. If he were young and a redshirt sophomore coming out, okay, he'll quicken it up. I would be willing to fight for more of that argument. But now that's where I just have concerns because if you don't have an overwhelming arm, I think he has just a fine arm strength. He can push the ball, but as far as driving the ball through a wall, if you're late, those NFL windows are so small. They close so quickly. Those become picks. Those become incomplete passes. Those become contested catches. So again, there's just a lot of concerns that I have sometimes that he doesn't push the ball down the field consistently or as far as highs and high lows. He doesn't drive the ball over the middle. He doesn't have overwhelming arm strength. He doesn't look to throw when he's on the move. A lot of red alerts going on.
Yeah.
So, and then size and all that.
Yeah, and I've liked Jaden Daniels for a while, but when you start getting the top 5 buzz, I had all those same alarms going off in my head. Like, I
Yep.
like this guy. If the Patriots were picking at 15, like they did when they took Mac Jones,
Yep.
sure, I can get
Totally
on
fine.
board with that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
3, I think, is a different story. Now, we talked top 5 buzz. There's another name that has kind of creeped up into this out
Yeah.
of nowhere, and that's JJ McCarthy from Michigan. I will say my bias, I'm a Michigan football fan, so I'm a
Okay.
I'm a JJ McCarthy supporter. But where do you land on him?
I think I'm with a lot of people is he grows on you the more you watch him. I mean, there's some games where he's only thrown the ball, excuse me, 8 times. So it's you got to watch all the games to kind of get a proper analysis of him. But everything I just brought with Daniels doesn't push the ball, doesn't throw the ball over the middle. McCarthy is the opposite. He fires that pigskin over the middle. He is willing to throw into a tight window. He has some creative throwing. He is more creative throwing to him than Daniels does, in my estimation. That's the things he throws the ball well on the move. Like he is a great bootleg thrower. He's great when he gets out of pocket, always going right. He never breaks contained to the left, and I'll talk about one of my concerns with him in a sec. But he has those things that a lot of coaches are going to like because throwing the ball over the middle, and I think some people have lost the plot with this. And again, I feel like I created a monster with this. Is that it's the juiciest area as far as creating yards after the catch. It is usually you throw it to the outside. It's a catch tackle, or it's a go ball, or it's a slant that comes inside and gets tackled right away. Throwing over the middle are seams, digs, things like that that can turn into bigger yards. But why it's so hard, and I know this because when I played, I was not good throwing the ball over the middle, is because you have to have anticipation. You have to have if you do have arm strength, this is where this shows up. You have to have feel. If they're in zone coverage, all right, I got to throw over this linebacker, get over his head, but have enough pace on it to beat the safety that's closing. That's quarterbacking. That's not just pitching and catching and having one-on-one. That's ISO ball. So that is the difference of all this is McCarthy's willing to do that. It only mostly shows up on third down because that's all when Michigan asked him to pass. So that's why you have to extrapolate a lot of this. And then this is where interview process comes into effect. I did not get to interview McCarthy, so I don't know. I've heard all these great things, but the thing is, I always take that with a grain of salt because I don't fully trust people in the league all the time. So is that McCarthy is supposed to be very sharp and everything. He handled a lot on his plate. The Penn State game stood out to me where he only threw the ball 8, 9, 10 times, something like that. They were backed up. And I talked about this on the show with Dane and Robert. They were backed up, crowd's going nuts. I think it was a close ball game. And Harbaugh, of course, because he can't help himself, give my young quarterback on the road, gives him like a whole play menu. And you could see him communicating with everybody that they're making a play check. Gets into a run play, boom. Next play, same thing. He's communicating with everyone. He shifts the guy over, but he's so calm. and he's doing all this. He knew what to do. And that's really important to see for such a young guy. It's like, okay, you can handle a true NFL offense. And those are just intangible things and just small things. But when you watch it over time, they start to add up, and then you could start building more of a case for him. I have him grading about the same tier as Daniels, maybe a little bit below, but that difference between them was a lot bigger when I started this process. And now it's very, very close between those two, which if you guys told me that 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have laughed at you. But after watching them game for game, look at statistical profiles, doing everything I do, it's like, yeah, I there's more to like with McCarthy than you would think.
Yeah, and I landed at a point where I have McCarthy just like a hair ahead of Daniels, and that's only like an age preference thing. It's
Right.
can we develop him?
And I don't
And I
I
yeah.
I don't blink at that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I understand it. I might end up the same way when it's all said and done. I haven't had the balls to do it yet, but I've squeezed them
You can
closer and
see
closer
the
on my
angry
finger.
comments now,
It's
and you're just
I
building
know,
up the
dude.
courage to put out the
Charles
tweet.
McDonald and I did, we just had happenstance. We're just like, let's just go over situations that can happen. It gets boring once you do your 12th mock draft, and you're like, okay. And so we had Daniels end up at 11th. I think actually what we did was we had team trade back, with the Vikings, end up with him at 11th. You would have thought we killed the president. You would have thought the LSU fans on a mock draft in March were like, I'm shocked I haven't gotten like anthrax sent to my house. Like, I am like, it's just, I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude, it's a mock draft. We're just going over situations. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, you
Mock
guys,
drafts get people going.
it's amazing.
I
Sometimes
yeah,
I mean, we're just doing it for like exercises, like kind of like, okay, if this trade
yeah,
happened, we do this,
yeah.
that'd be fun to write about. And it's just like, holy crap, it's no big deal, guys. We're not like saying anything's good or bad. This is just good, but people get fired up over
They
it.
they really do. I did a mock back in January where the Pats traded up from 34 to 19 to take JJ McCarthy there, and people were like, "There's no way he goes that high," and I was like,
That's
"Just wait 6 weeks
oh
and
my
see
god.
where we land because he's not going to be available
My
at 19 when we get to that point."
my guy Dane Brugler, McCarthy was his QB3 back in August. And even then I was kind of like, oh, that's a little rich, but I get it. There's a couple things to like with him. And we've kind of gone back and forth who our QB3s were up and down throughout the season. But he kept saying, he goes, I'm telling you, once this draft process starts, McCarthy's gonna get a lot of love. He goes, and he predicted every time, and he got yelled at on Twitter every week that anytime McCarthy did anything, Dane got it every week. And he just kept going, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And he freaking nailed it. He always nails it. Whenever he's confident, listen to Dane Brugler. I'm not just hyping up my guy, but when he's confident when those types of takes, it's like I listened. I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to throw him
Yep,
out, even if he's only throwing the ball 5 times. It's like, I'm not going to throw him out completely. The
yeah,
Michigan State game
and
helped a lot for me. When
he
that
was
game was
good in that
bad.
one. He had some nice
Michigan
throws.
State's defense was awful, but that helped. That helped me get over the top where I'm like, okay, this is what you could be. That game
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah, and McCarthy's also, highly recruited guy, winner,
I'd agree.
coachable. Once the NFL people get their
They're gonna
hands
be
on
all
that stuff, that's what they're going to
Oh
love.
yeah. And
So,
going from a Harbaugh offense to a lot of these offenses is going to translate easier for him. So in interviews, he's already speaking that language. He already had the Rosetta Stone to like speak all that. So that's going to help him too. Not that the other guys didn't, but May just went from 2 high school offenses the last couple of years, and so I think May is sharp. I've seen him in interviews and everything. He'll be fine, but it's like just even in interviews, McCarthy already has a leg up on all the other guys.
yeah,
Also, I do want to bring up, I just mentioned with Daniels, McCarthy has the weight stuff too. He weighed at 219 at the combine. I get it. Probably took an Austin Powers piss afterwards, but I would say he's about 210. I just have to bring up the size stuff because I do bring it up with
yeah.
Daniels. I just think they're kind of two pieces
Well,
in the pod there.
that was something I thought was notable comparing Daniels and McCarthy too. Is Daniels is a guy who, I think he didn't play in the bowl game. His last
No,
game is the SEC championship, and he doesn't weigh in until his pro day. And that's a long time, and he weighs in at
210.
210 or whatever. And
And
uh,
McCarthy
McCarthy
bulked up in
plays
like
in the
3 weeks.
national
Yeah, yeah.
championship and comes out at the combine and is almost 10 pounds heavier
That's
at
why
a
it's not a big of a
lower
concern.
height.
And he's
Yeah,
younger. Like,
yeah,
I know it's only a couple of years, but it matters. We all grow so
yes,
much between 20 and 25. Like, so 3, so
yeah.
yeah,
It's
mine was
very
my
true.
stomach. Yeah. So but that's why I know it always sounds like splitting hairs, and people are like, why are you bringing it up for Daniels, not McCarthy? You look at their frames, you look at just their age and everything. That's why you're optimistic for growth there, or at least a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys who I think maybe less optimistic for growth. We'll go to the next tier down very quickly. A quarterback, Nix, Penix, Spencer Rattler, whoever, Michael Pratt, whoever you want to throw in this next tier. Is there anybody in that intrigues you? I think specifically you're thinking about the Patriots at
Mhm.
34 or 68, later in the draft. Anybody that you like there?
Yeah, none I would take at 34, but who knows what quarterbacks, only takes one. I of this kinda next batch, I like Rattler the most, which, it's not he has read plenty of alarm bells, not just off-field stuff, but just also he's not very big, he's not very fast. That's already huge alarms for me. But dude could spin the ball, and dude, knows how to spin the ball, knows how to throw his teammates open. He knows how to make his teammates better on the field. If we're going off the field, we have to figure that out. I'm not sure. But on the field, that guy he makes NFL throws weekly with not a great situation. I think he was pressured on 40% of his dropbacks last year, which is an absolutely absurd number. And he had to make it work. But guess what? That's how it happens in the NFL. You might go with some crappy linemen that are hurt that week, and you have to make it work. You might go with some undrafted free agent receiver, and you have to make it work. So his game translates more than I think Nix or Penix does. I'm a little lower on those guys than a lot of people are. I think of them as more of like third rounders, maybe late second, but more third round. If I'm being true with it, which I should be. There's no negatives for me to not be, but I don't know why I said
Yeah, I
that.
mean, you can
But
come on here and lie if you'd like.
I know I kind of lie. I know people seem. I don't know. It's like might as well just say it. Nick's to me has some concerns. Doesn't throw the ball in the middle. Doesn't really push the ball. Oregon used him really well in their offense. He can be accurate underneath. You could see someone's completion percentage with that. He has some nice tools. But I'd look at him as like a Taylor Heineke plus, like a really high end backup that maybe could be a spot starter, a Gardner Minshew type, maybe like that. Him and Minshew are different types of players, but that type of tier of player, maybe of a Jacoby Brissett tier, maybe. But I think Brissett had way more tools than Nix does and was a better player. Um, like Brissett made sense to me in the second round. Nix does not make sense to me in the second round, even though some people have said that. But Penix too has age concerns, medicals. I like that he pushes the ball, but he needs a lot of platform to throw the ball. And that's where my Byron Leftwich comparison has gone in with him, is that he just needs a large operating space. He doesn't take a lot of sacks, but he also doesn't create. And that's the give and take. You watch quarterbacks right now, you have to create. You can't just
Yeah.
sit there and hang out. He had a great situation with the O line, the offensive coordinator, the receivers. So I have some more negatives on him than a lot of other people do. I also think some accuracy stuff. I don't think he really throws guys open. I don't see him when he does throw the ball over the middle, it's guessing, or it's throwing over the top. He has to see guys come open before he throws it. So even though he has some traits, like he ran really well in the 40, he's going to throw the ball hard when you watch him throw in person. It doesn't show on film. That creativity and that athleticism does not show up on film, which is your actual resume, not the testing.
Yeah, that's
So
what matters.
that's
Yeah.
what matters. That's why I'm concerned about it more than all this pro day stuff. It's like, yeah, I just watched this guy for several years. I know what his negatives are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that this people love this quarterback class, but you talk
It's fun.
about once you get to tier two or tier three, it drops off
Mhm.
pretty fast. I was saying, I think on our Monday show that you compare Jarrett Stidham when the Patriots drafted him in 2019, and you put him in this year's class, and he might end up going higher than the fourth
Hmm.
round compared to
He looks
some of these
way better in
guys.
this year. Yeah. He looks
Yeah,
way better compared now.
yeah, yeah. Let's move off quarterback for a second. I think offensive tackle, wide receiver, are the two other big needs here for New England. Obviously, Elliott Wolf here now, which is a little bit different perspective. I think I don't know what the balance is going to be between the Bill Belichick perspective, the Elliott Wolf
Mhm.
perspective, because you got Belichick scouts who've been scouting under Bill Belichick for a while with Elliott Wolf as the decision maker. I think it's going to be some middle ground
Yeah.
between all of these different systems, but there any receivers, tackles that you like? Obviously there's guys in the first round, but days two
Yeah.
and three that you think could be a fit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right off the bat, it's like, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. would be pretty fun. Uh, I know I was on Mina Kimes' show and I had the Patriot. She gives two picks for her mock, and the
Yeah,
guest has to pick which one. And I did a trade back. And that's because that's where I think the Patriots need. I don't like if May's there, you take May. But I think if it's Daniels is your guy, I would hate him where the Patriots are at right now. Just that would be such a shock for him going from what he did with
Mhm.
LSU to what the Patriots are right now. But anyways, if you're looking maybe into the round two, or even round 3. It is a great receiver class. The guys I think he'd be gone would be AD Mitchell or Brian Thomas. They'll be well gone before they pick in the second round. If you look at Troy Franklin from Oregon, twitchy X receiver, take the top off. But the problem with me, he's kind of like a little bit better version of Tyquan Thornton, where it's
Yeah.
that you would have the skinniest receiver core like ever. So that
And
is why
if they've got PTSD from that pick too, they
that's
might
no
might
never
see
happened.
got a guy wearing number
And
11 who's skinny and fast. Can't do that again.
And if Elliot Wolf is like his dad, they have thresholds for a receiver, which is
Mhm.
195 pounds.
Yeah,
So he's out.
that's
So you look at guys that are 195 and above. Keon Coleman, great ball winner, but is he like Devontae Parker, where not a lot of separation? You're not going to take the top off, So I like him, and he's very situation dependent for me. Do not like him for the Patriots right now because they need juice. They need
mhm.
a guy that can truly, even if he's not as skilled as some of these other guys are, they need a guy that can truly create a play. They have a lot of guys, they have a lot of nice players. And that's why I know I'm
It's
talking out
all
both sides of my mouth.
compliment.
They're
The whole
complementary
offense is full of
players. Yes.
pieces. Yeah.
Yes. And that's been their problem for like 3 years now. It's like when they did this free agent splurge a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, this is great. And I was like, you need one more. You need
Yeah,
another
like,
guy. Like, yeah.
it's Nelson Aguilar, and then you got Devontae Parker, and you got Juju Smith-Schuster. It's like, these are all, like, good number 2s.
Yes, so nice super role players, but you need a
Yeah,
dude. So if you look at size and speed, okay, like Jalen Polk, really nice player, meets that size threshold, but doesn't he's like a 4.52 guy. And I like him better for maybe the Bills or a different team that needs more complementary skill set than the speed guy. Just giving it further down, like actually, now that I'm really thinking about it, it's kind of not a great fit there for them in the second round. This is a
that's
great exercise
you're
because
you're
like
having you're having the same mental thing that I've had for the last 2 months
because
doing
none of
mock
these guys
drafts.
meet that threshold. I haven't even thought about that till
Nope.
right now. Because like, all
It's
right,
like
Lyle McConkey.
Johnny Wilson?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
Johnny
yeah,
Wilson
but
a guy who, like
it's like, are you gonna take him in the second? No, I wouldn't. Are you
no,
taking him in
he's
the
3rd,
third?
definitely 3rd.
Yeah, I have him
Mhm.
kind of graded there, but that's still a little rich to me. I have so much hesitancy with
Yeah.
him, but I still like him and Keon Coleman, the Florida State receivers, are my hardest grades of this offseason. I don't feel good about where I have them anytime I put them up there. So, but anyways, yeah, Johnny Wilson maybe has size. Like that's so you keep going down the list. All right. Roman Wilson from Michigan, slot only. Don't like that. Or is it Ricky Purcell from Florida? Got a lot of twitch to him. I see him as slot only, or
Yeah.
does most of the stuff from the slot. And I'm not typecasting him here. I just think that's the type of player he is. Malachi Corley, more of a gadgety guy, more of a
Yeah.
horizontal guy. Rasheed
You already
Rice.
have Pop Douglas. It's
Yeah,
like, I
I
don't
love
think
Pop Douglas, by the way. So yeah,
yeah, he's
love Pop
his
Douglas.
some of his, what do you call it, efficiency stats are, like, up there with, like, a Zay Flowers, and
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, like, this is we talk a lot about how the Patriots haven't drafted wide receivers, but I think Bill Belichick got a good one on his way
he
out there
did.
and on day 3, which is
I
where he was
know,
pretty
which
good
is
at
so
finding
funny.
guys.
I know, I love Pop Douglas. No, it's a great, but that's like I don't like Xavier Worthy. He's not going to meet their size threshold. I just don't like him either way. Even if he runs a 4.21, it just doesn't show up like that on film. So it is a kind of a hard match. Now that I'm really looking at Jalen McMillan from Washington, I really like the player. I have him around that kind of third round break, and for him, might be slot only again. And he can, maybe push the ball, or sorry, stretch the field a little bit. He's a good player, really is. But he might not meet the size threshold. So
Yeah.
now again, we're getting back into that. So actually, no, this is a great exercise for me because it's a hard to find that perfect fit if we're following Wolf's thresholds and what I think they do need. To me, I mean, McConkey would be a great fit for what they need. That's a different type of animal they have at pass catcher. And he could play inside or outside, and he has some juice. So, but again, he's 185, I believe. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit below their threshold.
And I wouldn't be shocked if he's a guy who comes off the board right before New England picks in the second round with
He'll be
Carolina.
Carolina. I know everyone's mocking him there, but
Yeah.
everyone likes him. He's one of those guys, every team scout, uh, whether that's in the media or with a team, everyone likes Lad. It's one of those where everyone is in the same grade with him. Everyone likes him. It's one of those players that's just like, yeah, he's gonna go. I think where everyone thinks he's gonna go.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the one guy you didn't mention there was Xavier Legette, who I
Oh,
think,
look at yes.
he's got the size, he's an athlete.
Yeah,
It's just,
but
he's got red flags with his profile.
profile, late bloomer, more of a gadgety guy. I think football is not intuitive to him. Like he's
Mhm.
still, that's why he took so long to break out. He kind of will need to come along. So again, if you're going with it, say even just a young quarterback or a quarterback down the road, I don't know if the juice is worth that. He's more of a cherry on top type of player than a building block type of player. Someone had
Yeah.
him mocked to the Panthers, and I was like, they just did this last year with freaking what's his name from Ole Miss, Jonathan
Oh,
Mingo. Jonathan Mingo,
yeah.
you're getting
And
the
they got
same type
Terrace
of
Marshall
player.
there too, right?
It's like you're getting all these players that are the exact same. Like and they're also like,
Yeah.
hard learners. So Leggett, I look at as more of a third round guy, and I know people do like him, but I think like you said, there's some alarms with him, and I think he's gonna be very, very situation dependent.
Yeah. What about tackles? Or anybody there that you've scouted that
Oh boy. I
I
mean,
know listening to some of your things, we get to the end of the first round, you just kind of throw it out tackles for everybody. I feel like a lot of those
everybody.
guys are at 34 for New England too.
Oh my god, yeah, there's so many. I have 6 offensive linemen with true first round grades, which is exceptional. Usually I have 2 or 3 tops. I have 6, 10. I have 11 offensive linemen with top 40 grades, which is exceptional. That means 25% of the guys in my top 40 are offensive linemen. And that might not even including Zach Frazier or Christian Haynes, who are both border. Actually, I think they both actually made my top 40. So I'm lying right now. So I might be 13. Yeah, they both did. So 13 offensive linemen in my top 40. And I don't think I'm out of line there. I think a lot of people realize that there might be 8 offensive linemen going the first round, might be more. It's that kind of class. So, but it's a good thing though. Just like the receiver class is, once you get outside that top guy, you get to maybe those second tier guys. This is where scouting comes in. This is where who's actually knows what they're looking at. I'm not saying who's good or bad. I'm just saying this is some guys. This is where teams are made. So where the Patriots are at, a guy they might get on offensive line is usually someone that might usually go in the top 20 in a normal draft. But because this
Mhm.
line class is so deep, there's Kingsley Suamatatia from BYU. I think I nailed his
Mhm.
name finally. But he has pedigree, he has upside both tackle spots. I'm a big fan. He is 23 on my big board right now, but that's where I think his range starts is the 20s to the 40s. And right there where the Patriots are at, that would be a home run, I think, because
Mhm.
that's a guy I see usually go earlier in a draft. He has better film and just as much physical profile as Trevor Penning, who went in the teens,
Mhm.
early teens just a couple of years ago. He has better film than Tyler Smith, who I really like and still is a great pro, got bumped in the guard, but he went in the near top 20, I think like 21, 22. Way better film than that. So another guy, Jordan Morgan from Arizona,
Mhm.
again, same type of range, 20 to 40 range. People aren't sure if he's a tackle or a guard. I'm not sure if he can hold up at left tackle, but I'd like to try him at right tackle. He might be better in a true Shanahan offense, uses movement skills and everything like that a
Mhm.
little bit better, but I like him a lot more than I think other people do.
Well,
But
and
he's pardon.
it's Alex Van Pelt now is the offensive coordinator for New England, who
Yes,
I think is gonna bring in some of those principles to the offensive
Packers.
line too. So I
They
think
love that stretch stuff when he was back with the Packers too. So it's like
yeah.
Morgan makes more sense for
Yeah,
some teams than others.
and he's a guy who I think has inside
He
versatility, right?
does.
They think of he
That's
can
why I
kick
like him.
inside,
Yeah. Yep.
and it's like, Cole Strange, City So are guys who have performed well at points, but are very much question marks in terms of long-term starters. So I think
Yeah.
Morgan is a guy who, high floor. If he isn't a tackle, you kick him inside to guard. You got a
Yep.
6, 7 year starter there.
Yeah, he's one of those. It's like I'm going to try a tackle, and I think there's a path there. But it's like I think there's a 30% chance he sticks at tackle, and it's not like where I'm like, yeah, he's 50-50. I watched him go against Leatu Latu from UCLA, and I saw him handle him. I think he lost 1 rep. I would say, and I would say there's like 17 true one-on-ones. I'd say give or take. If I nailed that, it was 17. I'd be really proud of my brain right now because I actually do think it was 17 plays. But I saw Morgan handle him one on one, no chip help and everything, and did it well. And that's why I think I'm higher on him. Sometimes you don't want to let that one game stand out too much, which I see other people do with Latu, with maybe the USC game. But I don't know. I like Morgan way more than others. Okay, other guys. Tyler Guyton, more of a project-y tackle, tackle only. I see him as, but he moves really well. Didn't test as exceptionally as I thought he might, but his tape, he's more of a true project than I think these other 2 guys I just mentioned. Even if I think of them in the same tier of these 3 guys I just mentioned, I would have him 3.
Mhm.
And then if you look interior, there's Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. He has some medical stuff. He's still more of bundle of tools than a finished project at center. But I mean, he has some real traits and size and speed. He has a fun attitude, really fun to watch, but he's still going to be a work in progress. Christian Haynes from UConn. I love him.
Mhm.
I might be guard only, but he's working at center as well. You don't get a lot of guys. His closest comparison to me is might be Shaq Mason, funnily enough.
Okay.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
Mason
Old
win the
school.
fourth.
Mason's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mason win the fourth, but he was Georgia Tech offense, super short. He's
Mhm.
6'1". Haynes is kind of like a taller version of that. People haven't had him as high as me, but I think there's kind of some swell building with him, which is pretty fun. So that's another guy I consider in this kind of range. There, and if you one last kind of project tackles, Patrick Paul from Houston.
Mhm.
I think he is a lot. I actually like him better in Guyton, even if I have
Mhm.
Guyton graded higher, which like
Okay.
it's going to change. I just realized that as I'm
Yeah.
doing my big board right now, I'm going to swap those two. So I'm just going to, there's a little
Interesting.
preview for my
All
article this
right. All
week.
right. Yeah. We get an
Um,
exclusive.
yeah, right. I know. But as I'm looking at my big board, because I haven't changed the colors on them. Yeah, I like Paul a little bit more because I think his upside's a little bit, even a little bit more than Guyton. And I think even if they're both projects, I think football makes more sense for Paul, if that makes sense. His natural kind of like eyes and awareness seem more natural. Guyton to me seems very robotic. Okay, coach told me to do this, told me to do this. Okay, and then my eyes are going to do this. Paul is like kind of like eyes are all over the place, but he's like, oh, okay, this guy moved. I got to block him now. I know it's kind of sounds weird, like you want the
Yeah.
guy that sounds coachable, but that's also like, well, if I get him more coached, then
Yeah.
hypothetically, his
The
tools should be a
ceiling's
little bit
higher.
better. Yeah, ceiling's higher.
Yeah.
It's all theory, but that's my
Yeah.
theory right now.
And I think a lot depends on, they got a new offensive line coach in New England, and it's, what are his
Yeah.
skills? What can
Who's the
he
line coach? I forgot.
Scott Peters?
Scott Peters. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which I
it's
think I think he has some background in, like, mixed martial arts or something like that. He does a lot of
interesting.
hand stuff, which is
Oh, he's a
very,
Callahan.
very
He's a
fun.
Callahan guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yep.
Yeah.
No, that's yeah. So, okay, is Callahan? This is important though. So, yeah. So, if he's a Callahan guy, okay, he's gonna like size. So, okay. That Paul actually might be more realistic.
That's interesting. That's good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Callahan and my dad, who has an offensive line background, they have similar. They like guys cut from the same cloth. They just like big guys that can recover, which is like, oh, no kidding. But they like different guys than Scarnecchia did.
Yeah.
Scarnecchia like guys that were light on their feet, but like his thing was all about hand usage. Did you have
Yeah.
tight hands? Could you recover with your hands? Callahan and my dad were more, can you recover with your feet and your
Mhm.
wingspan? So little differences of that, but all successful offensive line coaches, but just shows kind of like what they prioritize when they watch these guys.
Yeah. There's different flavors of it, different ways to skin the
There
cat
is
in the NFL. Yeah.
absolutely tons of them.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap up one final segment here. We'll
Yeah,
do it quick for you. We're gonna have you put your GM hat on really quick.
do it.
I'm gonna walk you through a couple scenarios. You tell me what you're gonna do if you're GM of the New England Patriots.
All right.
All right, first one. Caleb Williams goes at pick 1. Jaden Daniels goes at pick 2. What are you doing at 3?
Sprinting, tripping, getting the thing up the card up there with Drake May, North Carolina, and not thinking twice about it. Yeah, I know I said it's not the ideal situation dropping a young quarterback. May is that guy that's like you do everything you can to get a quarterback with this potential. Like that,
Yeah.
we're seeing the Vikings just do all these moves to maybe get McCarthy, to
Yeah.
maybe get a guy that's a tier below. I don't know. It's like teams do a lot of stupid things to get a guy that might have this potential.
All right, let's say Drake May is the guy that comes off the board at 2. You got, a trade offer on the table that includes
Yeah,
3 first-round picks.
yeah.
What are you doing at 3?
I'm trained back.
Yeah.
I love how but hey, comes down to the player. Yeah, I would trade back, and there's some interesting situations I think the Patriots could do. And I'm curious. I don't know how they think of their team. Like you said, I know a lot about Elliott Wolf. I've never seen him run a team. I know
Yeah.
a lot about Jared Mayo. Never seen him run a team. So you never know until they get put in that chair what they're going to do. So I would trade back just because Daniels to me is not that true blue chipper. I do think he is worthy of a first round pick, but not at
Mhm.
number 3. So
Yeah.
I would hopefully trade back. Shoot, he might still be there. Who knows? But yeah, you'll
No.
see.
In that scenario, you can't trade back. You don't get a good offer. What are you doing? You just pulling the trigger on Daniels anyway, or
if
Marvin,
there
come on down?
if it's me, the GM, I would say Marvin,
Yeah.
come on down and get a true
Yeah.
what I think a guy that's higher on my board, my personal
Mm.
board, and not only higher a there. I have three guys with purple chips, which is higher than a blue chip, and that's Caleb, Drake May, and Marvin Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. So it's like that. Those three are to me. It's like you take those over trades. That and then
Yeah.
once you get to blue chip, then you get into that. Once you get to green chip, which is the next tier down, then it's like, okay, then whoa, what's the deal we're talking about now?
Everything's on the table.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But when you're getting to purple chips, it's kind of one of those you take them and think about everything else later. That's kind of my philosophy.
All right. So now let's say you've accepted that trade. We're gonna say it's the Vikings one because this is what everybody's talking about in New
Yeah,
England.
yeah, yeah.
You got picks 11 and 23 in the first
I
round now
love it.
instead of three. Um, hypothetically, who would you take? You can throw out any names you want here for those
Yeah.
picks. Where do you think you're going with that?
If you're 11 and 23, you're kind of lined up perfectly at 11 to if one of those top three receivers, Roman Dunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Malik Neighbors, which I don't think they will. If one does drop out of top 10, holy crap! If one of those guys is there, take them. Don't even think about it. If they're all gone, if you like Brian Thomas, if you like AD Mitchell, the kind of next two, Brian Thomas has kind of been tiered above, but I have him a little closer as I've gone along. But I do like Thomas a lot. Go with them. But I think they're in a great position to go line. They again, this is an awesome offensive line class. So Joe Alt's kind of become the considered or consensus number one guy. But after that, there's a lot of guys I consider easy top 20 guys, easy top 15 guys.
Mm.
Troy Fatanu from Washington would
Yeah.
be ideal. I think he could stay at left tackle. If you don't think he can, I think he can play at all other four spots. Scarnecchia would love him. Like this guy's
Yes.
ideal for Scarnecchia. So I know
Yeah.
Scarnecchia's not there, but he's not walking through that door. But it's
Unfortunately.
Dante is not walking through that door. Oh my god, he's the best. Great guy too. Like I've gotten to
Yeah.
meet him a few times over the years. Just unbelievable person.
Mm.
But anyways, but he would be ideal if Olufashanu, who's kind of dropped a little bit. I don't think he should. I mean, 11 is kind of a perfect range for him from Penn
Mhm.
State. That's another guy I think should go in the top 10. JC Latham from Alabama, big.
Mm.
I think should be easily stay at tackle. I think of his body type, a lot of people are kind of going, "Oh, he's a guard." I think he has a chance to stay at tackle and be a very good one. All those guys are easy options there. Amarius Mims, if you want to shoot for the moon, from Georgia. This might be a little rich, but his upside is as high as anyone at any position in this draft. He's just started 8 games in college, and it's pretty risky. If this is my first pick
Yeah.
of my regime, I'm going for a quasi project, quasi untapped potential offensive tackle without Steve Scarnecchia or Dante Scarnecchia coaching him. So that Steve's the son. So Mims is another one. Graham Barton would be the last blue chip tack or offensive lineman. I think he could stay at tackle, but I think he has 5-position Pro Bowl upside, or I should say 4-position Pro Bowl upside. Left tackle could probably start there, but that's another one. But world is your oyster at 11. I think it's almost more advantageous. I think if you're not going quarterback to be at 11, if you don't care which receiver you get, I think offensive line, this is the sweet spot to be in. Is that kind of 10 to 14 range.
Yeah. And then at 23, any quick
Oh yeah,
names?
23. I just spent
Is it a
14
lot?
minutes
I
on
think
that. Yeah.
I
I told
figured
you
a
I'd
lot of
never
the
go under.
same
I said, "Oh
names
yeah, I'll
in
be a
those
half
two.
hour on this show. We're an hour over an hour." At 30, or I'm sorry, at 23, again, if you're going receiver, this might be the Brian Thomas, AD Mitchell range, which
Yeah.
actually matches their type and might be better if you're going instead of waiting until day 2, which we kind of went over
Yeah.
that exercise. So if you went lineman 11 and then receiver at 23, that's a
And at
great start
34, you can kind of just,
to whatever. And that's
best
kind
player
of
available.
yeah, and that's kind of what you should do, I think, for this defensive class. I don't think you should be reaching for any of the defensive guys. I think you should let them all come to you, let the offense get pushed up. That's kind of how I've gone about that. So if you want to go Thomas or Mitchell there at receiver, shoot, I don't think Bowers would fall that far, but that would be an amazing situation. That would be one. Or if you went receiver first and you want to go offensive line here, this is where guys like Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. Some people are a little higher than me on him, but this is the range I think I'd be comfortable with him. Maybe Jackson Powers Johnson again. This again might be a little rich, but this might be the Barton range, the Graham Barton from Duke range. This might be actually the perfect spot for him. I'm really high on him. I think anyone that's listened to our show, Robert's made fun of me every week about it. He's my 12th guy on my big board. I think he's a phenomenal player.
Sounds good. This is all great information. I love it. We'll wrap up here. Final question. You've been around the league for a while. Your dad was a coach. Any stories about, the Patriots, Bill Belichick?
Oh man. Well, when I was working with the Falcons, we used the Patriots system, so I kind of got some kind of like more just like those ones I probably can't share stories, but the one for me is almost more sentimental. And I've shared this once before. Well, after Belichick quasi retired, quasi got pushed out, whatever you want to call it. When my dad, who was the head coach of the Vikings, got fired from the Vikings in 2000, it would have been winter of 2006. The first person that reached out to him in the industry, and he has friends with coaches and everything, and all over the place. The first person I reached out to him was Bill Belichick, and kind of shared him a note. So he got fired on that Sunday, and that note got there Tuesday. So I meant Belichick shipped that bad boy out. Maybe knew he was getting fired or something. But the note said, Coach, I have nothing but respect for you. I hope you get a second shot at this like I did. And that has stuck with my dad. And I will never like the fact that they're friendly. They have respect for each other. They're not friends. But it's one of those, they're peers. And the fact that Belichick not only took the time on the Sunday, probably on their way to another playoff appearance, Super Bowl, all that, week 17, sat there, wrote that note, and got it out right away. It just spoke a lot to not only my dad, but me all these years later, because it just showed there's a lot behind the scenes that Belichick has done and does, and the conversations he has that is just so deep. And I know there's others come out. It's not a perfect man. There's a lot wrong with him, but there's little things he did like that where it's like, oh, that's really cool. And
Yeah.
real, and one of those things that is cool about the football industry that sometimes gets overlooked, maybe by some people that become cynical. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, that's one that's always stuck with me with Coach.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story right there. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Nate, let everybody know where they can find your stuff.
First and foremost, Nate_Tice on Twitter, not Nate Tice, just Nate _Tice. Or you can read my stuff on Yahoo. I'll have my top 100 big board probably by tomorrow or Friday, somewhere around there. I think tomorrow I'm supposed to have it in, but it'll be in there. So by the end of the week, look for that on Yahoo, top 100 big board. And then also you can hear me, the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays. And we've been doing a couple shows a week, but there's more to that as well.
Yeah. I definitely recommend you go check that out. That's, I think, one of the best NFL resources out there, especially if you want, as a Patriots fan, you want the league-wide content. You don't have time to sit back and watch every game on Sunday. I think you guys do a good job of summarizing everything else that I didn't get a chance to watch. And draft season, it's amazing. So, yeah, thank you for doing that service on Sunday of sitting there and trying to take in as many games as possible.
Appreciate it. No, thank you. Thanks for checking it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
right now we got Dane Brugler in there, who's our
He's
athletics draft
amazing.
expert. Who's amazing. His the beast, which he will have hundreds and
Next
hundreds of
week.
prospects. He'll be out next week, so make sure you check out that. Dane is the best of the best.
Yeah, he is fantastic. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for coming on, Nate.
Thanks for having me.
Pat and I are gonna be back. We're gonna be back next Monday. Next Monday night we do our mock draft Mondays. So we're gonna be. I think we're gonna do a live mock on air next Monday. Take some listener mocks and talk about what people have to say, what people want to do with the Patriots. But that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next.